Hello and welcome to this special edition dedicated to COVID-19 and to our community response to this pandemic. My name is Carol Merton, and before I welcome our guests today to the program, I'd like to take a moment to send a special thank you to our Medical Officer of Health, our Public Health Unit staff, our community service providers and support agencies, our first-line responders, hospitals, retirement homes, long-term care facilities, our essential frontline staff, including grocery store attendants, our delivery truck drivers, our gas station attendants, and all of the others, including pharmacies, who are continuing to provide the services that keep our community safe. I thank you for your ongoing efforts and your prompt attention to our needs. We are all together in this exceptional and ever-changing situation. We are all neighbors doing our best to care for and to support each other. Here at Rogers TV, we will be providing you with current information from our community agencies as well as our elected officials. However, as you're probably already aware, this information changes rapidly, hourly, daily. We encourage you to stay current with the situation by going on to the Public Health Unit website at publichealthgraybruce.on.ca, listen to the radio, read your daily newspaper, and of course, tune into Rogers TV for updated information. I'm getting all choked up just talking about this. I really would like to welcome today as a guest Paul Vickers. Paul is the Zone 2 rep. I want to make sure I get this right. Zone 2 rep for the Ontario Federation of Agriculture for Bruce Grey counties. Did I get that right, Paul?
Yep, yeah, that's right, Carol. You did.
Thank you so much for joining us on the program today. And the reason that you're here, I know you wear many, many hats. The reason we're here is because of the impact of COVID-19 on farmers, and we really do need to find out what's happening in the field of agriculture and how the community can support the farmers, and certainly you in your role. So again, thank you for being here. How have things been? What's changed?
Yeah, well, just to start with, Carol, I just want to say thank you for having me on the program, and your list of people that you started, thanking at the start. I think we should also thank our farmers.
Yes.
So we're still carrying on our duties here in the farm and producing safe, reliable, food for everybody to consume. So. Many things have changed. If you want, I could maybe I'm a dairy farmer over in the Meaford area. Mm-hmm. We've been dairy farming here for over 30 years now with my wife, Karen, and our family. We also do a bit of cropping. We grow some extra crops for wheat and soybeans, our main two other crops. Most of the corn and hay that we grow goes to feed our cattle. So that kind of sums up kind of what we're doing. And like you said, I'm also the rep for the OFA, for the director for Grey and Bruce counties, and I also sit on municipal council for the municipality of Meaford. So just a little bit of a quick introduction to myself.
It's always great to get to know the person who's actually presenting today, and I thank you for that. How many years have you actually farmed?
So I graduated in 86, and it would have been probably about 88 is when I really became a full-time farmer. So, been doing about, I guess we do the math, 32 years now. And, it's something that I've always enjoyed. I've always had a passion for farming, even when I was a teenager. So it's still there. Some days are better than others, but, there's a lot more good days than there is bad days. So, I've been doing it for a while.
So before we get into the topic of COVID-19 and the impact, can you describe your role as the representative for the Federation and what the Federation does? How does it represent farmers?
Yeah, so really, if you look at OFA, which is the Ontario Federation of Agriculture, we basically have three levels. There's the county level, So there's an organization in Grey County and Bruce County, and they're separate, and they look after different issues that are very pertinent to that area, to the Grey and Bruce counties.
Yeah.
The Ontario Federation is a step up, and it kind of looks at more provincial matters. So if there's lots of provincial legislation that comes down through the provincial government, and we are asked to comment on it and kind of look out for the what's good for agriculture, and what's good for everything. We can't just look at ourselves as just being in a bubble, and that what's good for us is good for everybody. It's important that we look at policies, and we look at issues in a way that can benefit all of Ontario. And then the last level is the higher level after that is the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, and they look at basically the Canadian-wide issues of the day, sort of things. So we're basically here to if there's issues that need to be raised, we need a lobbying body to raise them, or a group that would advocate for the agriculture commodities. And we don't just look after one commodity. We don't look after just dairy. We look after dairy, beef, the crops, apples. We have a lot of tender fruit up in this area. Vegetable crops. We actually also get into the flower business. They're also considered to be agriculture and to be farmers. So we certainly look after what their problems are and their concerns are.
I was not aware that the flowers were included. That's really helpful information. So there's quite a broad scope involved under farmers and the type of products that are produced.
Yeah, and then there's 38,000 members in the OFA in just Ontario alone. So it's quite a large organization, and we represent. We give the voice to all those 38,000 people, farmers.
Excellent. So I'm just going to start down the list, but for sure I'm looking to you to provide the background and any additional content. So don't wait for me to ask if there's other things that you want to share.
Okay.
So I guess my first question was, how are farmers able to put into their farming practices the public health unit guidelines regarding COVID-19 in your day-to-day operations? So things like distancing, or the hand washing, all of that stuff. So what's changed in your farm, your farming practice, and what's changed in others that you're aware of?
Yeah. So, and that's an interesting question, Carol. When you really think about it, farmers kind of self-isolate most of their time. On a lot of the farms in the local area in Grey and Bruce counties, we work as individuals, and we work with a smaller sort of a crew. So right now, our farm, we have my wife and Karen and my two kids, Sandra and Jack, are all living in the house. So we're kind of working as a group, sort of thing. Mm-hmm. The kids come out and help. Jack, he was in his first year of Ridgetown College, and of course he got suspended, and he's been home finishing up his first year here, and he actually wrote an exam this morning. So they're the ones that help me right now, are Cassandra and Jack, and my wife Karen. She's a nurse, so she goes to work at the hospitals, and so it really hasn't changed a whole lot on our farm. I guess the one thing that maybe has changed a little bit is that we have a person coming in to do a bit of relief milking. And at the start, we thought maybe it wasn't a good idea to have him exposed to us and us exposed to him. So we've, for the last month, it was probably almost 4 weeks ago now, Brandon came in and did his last milking. So we've been doing the milkings and looking after the cattle and everything on ourselves, like by ourselves here right now, which is becoming a little bit taxing. It's been a long time without a break, so we're gonna have to try and figure out something that we can work, that maybe Brandon can come in and do a couple more milkings for us, and whether we have to sanitize the milk house and the milkers and any touch points down. I'm not exactly sure, but I think that's what's going to happen. And then he'll do his couple milkings, and then afterwards we'll sanitize the milk house and the touch points again. So for us, it's relatively easy. Where we're getting into more issues in the agriculture industry is in some of the larger farms that have more employees. The more people you have, the bigger kind of group that you have in your little pod. And then when you get into the vegetables in the Holland Marsh area, they're very labor intensive operations. They have a lot of people, but people are coming up with innovative ideas. We seen on Twitter there the other day that an onion planter, I think it was, and they have 6 people, basically shoulder to shoulder. And the farmer decided that this wasn't going to work, and he actually made like a plexiglass to go in between the two between every seat. There's a plexiglass, kind of like what it would be in the grocery store or the retail stores. So it's one thing about it. We're a fairly resilient bunch, and we look at everything as an issue, as a problem. If it is a problem, then we try and mitigate it and fix it as best we can, sort of thing. So some of the areas you can't be completely 100% on, just because you can't physically distance yourself far enough away. So we're doing the best we can, and we're working at it from there.
Yeah, and I think the point that is a given, but maybe needs to be emphasized: farming is not a 9-to-5 job. When you say it's taxing, it's because 7 days a week you're having to milk cows, correct?
Yeah, and twice a day, every 12 hours, you start it again, sort of thing. So the longest break you ever have is usually at night. Then you have a break of about 10 hours, and you still got to sleep in there too, sort of thing. So that's the problem that I'm having right now, just trying to the grind and the day after day after day, sort of thing. So
yes, and as we go along, and it's longer than we had hoped for, and we really don't know how much longer. It becomes a challenge for endurance for people to be able to sustain the efforts that they're doing, and that for sure is a concern, for sure. Just to clarify, so on your dairy farm, there's no, you're still having the milk truck come and pick up the milk and take it away. There's no change in that practice at all.
No, right. And the only change is they require us to, again, sanitize the milk house before the milk truck driver comes. Okay. And any touch points that the milk truck driver will touch, then you wash it down with a mixture of peroxide and water. And they feel this is a good disinfectant, and it seems to work. So before he comes, we go through the milk house, all the touch points, all get washed down and sprayed with this solution. And he comes and picks up the milk, and washes going in, washes going out. And then after he leaves, then we basically wash the milk house again to kind of protect us, sort of thing, to try and create that bubble, that wall around our farm, sort of thing.
For sure. So that's extra additional work on top of everything else that you wouldn't normally in your day have to do. So you're coping with less hands on deck helping, not a break time, but also extra procedures. And that would be fair to say for most farms, correct?
Oh, I would think so. Everybody has to make adjustments, and that's part of the issue is nobody's good at change, and all of a sudden, the routine that you had before, was good, and then all of a sudden now we have to add one more layer. Yeah. And it's something we have to do, and it's important to do. We all have our part, and you just have to get into good habits, and habits are sometimes easier to make or harder to make and easier to lose, sort of thing. But we're working hard at it, and you just have to stop and think about it for a few minutes. Yeah.
So my next question, and this is in no particular order, so I'm just going through the bullet points. Has there been any impact on the supply chain for farmers to receive goods or to be able to distribute their goods?
So I would say on most of the farms there hasn't been an issue. So back when the weather was a little bit more pleasant than what it is today, we were out spreading fertilizer. So again, I was talking to Sprucedale, and I asked them what the procedures were, and they said, they do wipe things down in between each, drop in a spreader off from my farm to the next farm, and they urged me to do the same thing. So you just have to remember, if somebody else is touching it that isn't part of your little pod, your group, then you need to make sure you have some wipes or some able to at least wash your hands afterwards. So, the feed truck is, we haven't had any problems with the feed. is continuing to come all the time, and you just unfortunately don't talk to them anymore, right? You would go and say hello to the feed truck guy or the milkman, but now you just have to kind of maintain your distance, sort of thing. And again, it's just you just have to use common sense and create good habits. So.
Yeah. So it sounds like the suppliers are also changing their practices to make sure that everyone is protected. So it's along the supply chain, there's a change in practice as well.
Yeah, for sure. And just to kind of expand on that, the feed rep hasn't been here that kind of helps balance the ration. At the very start of it, they said they wouldn't make any more on-farm calls for the meantime. Which it works well right now at this time of year because the feed is very stable and we don't have a lot of changes to the ration. It's come summertime when we're bringing in new haylage, new oats and peas and corn silage into the ration. That's when there's a lot more kind of face-to-face, hands-on work, and we'll have to figure out something there. As long as we keep maintain the distancing, I think it's still doable, and hopefully as time goes on, there'll be that more personal protection will be able to be had beside right now the front lines, the hospitals and the long-term care units need that protection. And hopefully as we go on that protection will be allowed once they start ramping up production, that it'll be more available to other people also. So it's a bit of an issue right now, but again you just have to use good judgment and some common sense and keep working through it.
Yeah. Springtime is usually birthing time in the farms. I grew up surrounded by 3 farms, so I have a little bit of an idea. I also know it's much more comfortable to sit on a horse than a cow. I learned that the hard way. The farmer's joke when I asked what it felt like. I only did it once. So my question to you is vet care as we move into, obviously calving, lambing season. Are you concerned about whether and how will vet care happen for the farm animals?
And it's important for vet care to continue to happen, right? The agriculture industry has been declared as an essential service, and everybody that's part of that essential service is allowed to still be able to perform their duties. So with veterinarian, you try and not call them any more than you have to. I had to my regular monthly herd health call. It was time for Dr. Hall to come in to do the preg checks, and so you think about it ahead of time. You try and make sure that there isn't any more contact than you ever have to do, but with cattle you can't always predict what they're going to do. So you just use your sense. There was one time I had to step in to help them, and I just you try to turn your back to them and make sure you try to not breathe on each other and that sort of thing. So again, but in the end, we are responsible for our animals. So if there was an operation that had to be done, you would do the best you can, and it would be what it would be. We're just like a lot of other people that have to do things because it's required from us.
Yeah. So I've been reading a bit about migrant workers and some of the concerns around whether migrant workers would be able to assist. That's an important part of the human resource in our area, correct?
Yeah, for sure. In the Meaford area, we have the Meaford-Thornbury area. There's a large apple orchards, and they require a lot of temporary foreign workers to come in to help complete the task. So it is very important, and it's not something that can be just easily replaced. We need to still bring some people in. They've tried to work through the regulations. The OFA was very quick on responding to that to the government, because at one time they were preventing any what do you want to call them, people from other countries, I guess. I don't know what they call them, foreigners. They weren't going to allow them into the country, but then we had to tell them that this isn't possible. Like, we need these people up here if we're going to keep producing food, which in the end is one of the most important things that we can do. That we need these people to come in and help us on these farms, on the the vegetable farms, the apple farms, the peaches and the pears and everything else. So we tried to come to work with the government to through the regulations and to help and Health Canada. When the workers come in, they have to do a 2-week self-isolation, which has caused a few issues. The bunk rooms that the men and the women stay in aren't large enough to keep that social distancing in part. So they came up with different ways, either by putting some of them up into hotels or actually even getting RV campers, that they usually are rent out to tourists. They've brought them onto the farms, and the migrant workers can stay in them for the 2 weeks. So.
Yeah. So certainly, as you say, creative solutions to be able to. So, and I think I want to emphasize from my perspective, farmers are really frontline providers for food security. And I think, we talk about healthcare workers as frontline workers, but I think, farmers are frontline workers in that, without the food, people don't have that security. So I think it really needs to be emphasized. Based on that comment, how can the community help farmers? What do you need from the community?
Yeah, I think you're right on your comments. Like, one thing about the food industry and the agriculture industry, we're a very robust industry, and we do adapt as well as anybody to changes. And it is important for us to keep producing food because we have a very stable food production system here in Canada, and we don't want to jeopardize that. So
right.
Other countries may not be quite as fortunate as what we are here in Canada, but I think the public shouldn't worry about being hungry. I think you may have to change some of your choices, but there will always be choices there at the supermarket. It's not like all the shelves will be empty. You see the pictures from back in the wartime or back in the Cold War in Russia, where there just wasn't any food to buy. I don't think. I know we don't have to worry about that, but we may just have to alter our choices. And so some of the things that people can do locally is there is a certain amount of local production that can be purchased in the area. We quite haven't got it figured out about the farmers markets yet. They're still trying to decide how farmer markets can still go ahead this year, but we're working hard to try and get that to happen. So when you get somebody that's willing to grow their crops, their vegetables, and then they bring them into the market, maybe take a look at them, and I'm sure there'll be precautions that it's just like going to a supermarket that we will be able to purchase from the local farmers. There's lamb farmers. I have a friend that just started into the sheep there last year, and he's got all his lambs on the ground, and he'll be looking maybe for people to purchase them, and hopefully you can get them processed and made into the different cuts that you want. So always take a bit of a look around. There is different websites. I think the one website is I meant to write it down. I think it's Eat Bruce and Gray or something like that. But if you Google it, I'm sure you can find some helpful websites that would help you, direct you to some local producers that you'd be able to support. So, and it's good to produce or to support the local farmers, but it's really, if you consider Ontario to be local, there's a lot of different ways. Just read the labels, and when it becomes strawberry picking time or raspberry picking time, hopefully people that have a little bit of extra time, what better way to get out and get outside than I'm sure a strawberry patch, you can maintain lots of distance between people and just go out and enjoy it and learn how to make jam again. So
yes, and I think that's the creative part that the community needs to do is to think about ways of looking locally for sure, buying locally, and considering doing things that perhaps in the past may have been a lost art or just been set aside, for sure.
Okay. So
there have been some issues around shortages or perceived shortages, and I wonder if you can speak to those. Things like flour. People are commenting they can't find flour. I'm not sure about other things. Can you speak to why that is? And
you just have to think, 6 weeks ago, how much different we lived compared to what we live now. Restaurants, I always knew that restaurants, a lot of people ate a lot of meals in the restaurant industry, and now that's completely gone. And that's some of the issue. Like, before, how many of these bakers that have went out and bought a 10-pound bag of flour, when was the last time they did that? So all of a sudden our supply chains are a little almost confused, I would say, right now, because what they was right a month ago isn't the same supply chain that we have now. And, all the food that used to go through the restaurants now has to go through a grocery store. And it's just upset things, a lot. And again, I don't think there's shortages. They're just, I would say they're probably temporary shortages, right?
Not permanent.
Not permanent. The New Life Mills plant down there in Hanover, I'm sure they can make a lot of flour, and it doesn't take many workers. I've been through some of those flour plants, and they're very automated, and they can work on a very small workforce. So again, if that's what's keeping you awake at night, rest assured you don't need to worry about that. You will have food. You will not go hungry. I will guarantee you that.
So what happens to farmers as we go through, if this continues for 3 to 6 months? What would you say from the farmer's perspective?
And Carol, that's a good question, and I'm not completely sure. You sometimes don't know till you know.
Yeah.
Again, you just have to use common sense and just think about the social distancing. The sun's going to come up every day this summer. We're going to go through our growing season. It's going to rain. We're going to have production out in the fields, and how it just all kind of sifts out in the end. I don't know, Carol. I have a hard time answering that question, but it doesn't hurt to have a few extra groceries kicking around.
Yeah.
But don't get too crazy about it. Like I said, it's not something to keep you awake at night. I will guarantee you there'll be food in the stores for as long as we can live.
Paul, I want to thank you very much for being on the program. Our half hour has gone by so quickly. I really am glad you're here. I wanted to profile farmers in our area and to recognize how important the farmers are in all of this, and in making sure that we have food security. So thank you so much. And I will add farmers to my little intro speech now. Thank you for that. Thank you to the viewing audience for joining us here today. Please take care of each other, stay safe, and stay healthy. Thank you.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media. This is Rogers TV.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Anderson of The Parenting Show. Join me and my co-host Allison Schaefer, who's joining us by Skype, to bring you a very special edition of The Parenting Show as we talk about COVID-19, only on Rogers TV.